Hi, I'm Roger. This is my shop, and I've been working on some beehives and building my own. And I've built the telescopic covers for both the hives and the swarm traps. This here is one of the telescoping covers for the hive, and telescoping cover for either a swarm trap or a nuke, however I decide to use it. I'm going to do something a little bit different. Instead of using the normal aluminum flashing like everyone uses for their covers, I'm going to use something called EPDM rubber. These are scraps left over from a commercial job. I know someone in the business, so I got all the scraps for free. I've got them roughly cut to size. It has a 25 to 30 year lifespan. Well, since I'm in my 60s, I don't really care what happens to them in 30 years. That'll be someone else's problem. This is put on with adhesive, and there's different ways you can do it. I've messed with this stuff before. I've re-roofed campers and all kinds of things. This is the recommended glue right here, adhesive. Hope you can see that okay, and the camera focuses on it. Smallest you can get it is a gallon. If you're doing quite a few, that's the way to go. Otherwise, another option would be the Weldwood contact cement, commonly available in home stores. And one more option, if you're only doing a small amount, because this stuff's a little pricey, is this 3M Super 77 adhesive. The way this stuff works is you apply a coat to both surfaces, one coat to the rubber, one coat to the surface you're going to bond it to, and you let those dry. Once they're dry and they're just a little bit tacky to the touch, you bond them together. But the caveat here is make sure you have it where you want it when you put it down on there, because you will not get it back off. It's an instant bond, and there's no really any room for mistakes or do-overs. If you screw it up, you're going to have to rip everything off and start over with a new piece of rubber, and hopefully it won't tear the surface of the wood up, because this stuff really sticks. What I'll need for this, and it's actually pretty simple, I've got these rough cut to size. When I get down to the end, I've got a razor knife here, commonly used for trimming up carpet or upholstery, of course a pair of scissors. This is called soapstone, commonly used by welders. It writes real well on this black rubber. This rubber also comes in white if you were to go out and buy it. So I know some people may be concerned that the black surface will overheat the hive. The inside of my covers, when I get done here, will have a 1-inch thick foil face insulation bonded to the inside. So I'm not worried about heat migrating down into the hive or anything. But I'm going to get one of these laid out, and then I'll come back and I'll show you about putting the adhesive on. Okay, got an even coat on both surfaces. You want to make sure you don't have any puddles because it'll take forever for that to set. And if you don't let it set completely and you apply this, when it does off gas, you'll end up with a bubble in your membrane. You don't want that. Something else to remember if you're using this, whether this or be contact cement, is it does give off some pretty good fumes and they are flammable. Got an exhaust fan running in the shop right now to evacuate the air. You don't want to do this in a closed area by any means. And if you're going to be real up close with it, I would wear an organic respirator because the fumes will probably give you a headache if you're in an enclosed space and you breathe too much of it. So we'll let this set up and come back in 15 minutes to a half hour and we'll see if it's tacked up and I'll put her on. Okay, let some time go by. Things are all tacked up here now and gooey and sticky and all that kind of good stuff. Biggest thing is to get it right the first time when you're doing your alignment. Once it's stuck down, it's there. I always start in the center on the sides. Don't stretch it too much or it'll try to stretch back and you'll have a problem. Make sure you don't have any air bubbles in there. This side just folds in, so it'll be underneath the other panel. Whether or not this is cheaper than using aluminum flashing, coil flashing, probably not if you're having to buy everything. Since I didn't have to pay for any of this, it's just free cutoffs. And it's a little bit of an experiment. Want to see how it'll do over the years. That, and I don't really like working with sheet metal when I don't have a brake to make a good bend. I haven't been real adept at making good 90s. Well, if you happen to know a roofer, you may be able to get this stuff for free, or if they're doing a tear-off somewhere and the stuff is not too deteriorated or messed up on the back side, it would work too. Well, generally if they're doing a tear-off, somebody's going to be doing a replacement. There's always going to be scraps. You know, what I do on the ends here is put a little cement on them from what's left on the foam brush here, and no, the glue does not dissolve the foam brush. I've done some things using these foam brushes, and whatever's in the stuff tends to dissolve the brush. And that's not a good thing. Give that a few seconds to get set up a little bit there and flash off. One thing I should also mention though, as you're doing this, if you attempt to do this, is don't have any puddles, or when the solvents get off gas underneath, you'll end up with bubbles. You also want to make sure that everything is dried down to being tacky before you apply the rubber, otherwise when it off gases you'll have bubbles. And once you have bubbles, it doesn't really hurt anything, it just doesn't look very good. Obviously you don't want to poke them to let the air out, because then you'll have a leak. I need to replace my razor blade here, getting a little dull. But we'll get through this cover with it. If you choose to use contact cement instead of the actual rubber roofing cement, when you're putting your coat on your wood, do a double coat, because the wood tends to suck that up real fast and you won't get a real good coverage on it, and it won't tack real well. Yeah, I've got a laminate roller, but I don't know where it is, so I'm just using a piece of 2-inch PVC pipe to roll this down. It's been a long time since I put any laminate on. It's maybe out in the shed somewhere, who knows. A little fold there from this was the end of the roll, so it was doubled back on the roll. And there we have it. And you've got a good 24 hours to come back and do any little adjustments you might need to make, and roll the corners down tight and that type of thing. Sometimes a wubber sounds like Elmer Fudd. That is rubber. Yeah, hunting rabbits. There we go. Okay, well that's about all there is to it. Like I said, this is a little bit something different, an alternative to using the aluminum flashing. As I mentioned before, it didn't cost me anything other than I did have to purchase a gallon of glue. But it takes a little bit of time, but to me it takes less time than cutting and bending and stapling the coil flashing on. So we'll see how this works. Thanks for watching.